Hey folks, this is Tristan from Noisegate, here with an exciting first look at Arturia's V-Collection 7. It's the latest update to their popular bundle of virtual instruments, which has historically been focused on emulating classic analog synthesizers. Things like the Mini Moog, the Moog Modular, CS80, ARP 2600, things like that. But recently they've branched off into just emulating classic keyboard instruments, things like acoustic pianos, electric pianos and organs. And now there's about 25 instruments packed in there, so it's a really comprehensive package for anyone just looking for a great collection of classic keyboard instruments. Okay, there's a ton to cover here, so let's dive straight in. First off, I'm looking at the CZV. Instead of being a direct one-to-one recreation of a particular synth, it's actually based off the whole CZ series of Casio synths from the 1980s. You can think of these as being a response to the DX7, so we're talking affordable and digital here, but that's not to say they don't sound great, because they've got a really nice warm character to them. So as you can hear, it can sound very warm and rich, but it can also sound kind of digital and edgy. That's because they're based off a concept called phase modulation or phase distortion, which in use can feel a lot like using an FM synth like a DX7. So basically we have two digital oscillators here, referred to as line 1 and line 2. You can switch between them here, choose 1 or 2, or both, or just a duplicate of 1. And in the middle of the screen we can see DCW. This stands for digitally controlled waveform, and that's what's responsible for playing the phase modulation. So you can see we can start off with just a sine wave here. As I apply phase distortion, which we can do individually to either line 1 or line 2 with these percentage controls, it morphs from a sine wave into more of a sawtooth wave. Okay? If we pop the lid of the synth with this button here, we access all our additional controls, including waveform selection. So you can see we have line 1 here with a variety of waveforms to choose from. Now with the phase modulation down, it doesn't sound very much like a square wave, and it doesn't look like one either. That's because it doesn't really take on the square wave characteristics until you introduce that phase distortion. We can also do that here using this control. And of course, this can be modulated using the envelope here. And as you can see, each line or digital oscillator is made up of two waveforms, so we can create these interesting kind of hybrid shapes. And we can turn on our second line, copy line 1 across to line 2, or do something different, like invert the phase modulation. Nice. And on top of this, there's a ton of extra stuff to look at. Here's our envelopes. Here's all of our modulation assignments, including this 16:8 modulation matrix, including our 4 macros across the front. And the last page is effects. So plenty to look at, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to move on. Okay, next up we're looking at the Synth Eevee, which is of course based on the EMS Synth Eevee AKS from the 1970s, which you may have heard on classic albums such as Dark Side of the Moon. Okay, it is in fact a portable modular synth, and the way they accomplished this back in the 70s, that's creating a proper portable modular system, was using this pin matrix patch bay. So we can route sources on the left to destinations across the top just by placing a pin in the intersecting socket. So it's a really great sounding synth. We've got these 3 really beautiful, rich oscillators here, and it's capable of sounding anywhere from soft and quiet and tame through to really aggressive. also have this joystick down the bottom right, which can be used to modulate lots of parameters simultaneously. And joystick modulation assignments are also done via the pin matrix here. So we can see the stick up and down is currently mapped to filter frequency, and left and right is controlling Oscillator 3's frequency and ring modulation. And if you don't have a physical joystick to control this, you can jump into the modulation bay here and draw in a custom modulation path for the joystick. Or we can click this dice button here to generate random paths. Pretty cool. On top of that, we have additional modulation assignments available from this page, and finally an effects section here. So lots to get your teeth stuck into. Okay, next up we're looking at the Mellotron V. This is a personal favorite instrument of mine, so I couldn't be happier to have one as part of the V-Collection bundle. And it was first introduced back in the 60s, and it was the first time keyboard players were able to really sound like flutes or choirs or a string ensemble. And realism aside, it had this kind of crusty, kind of lo-fi quality to it. So it really had its own sort of character, and it was popular with progressive rock bands for adding unusual atmosphere to their songs. If we pop the lid open using this button here, we get access to envelope controls on the left and additional tone controls up the top, including things like flutter and tape saturation. And at the bottom of the screen is where we can add sample layers. So you can see we have 3 sample layers loaded up here, which we can blend between using this knob on the front panel. Or stack all 3 together using the all position here. And to swap out sample layers, we just double click. And we can choose whatever samples we like from the factory selection, or we can even add our own using the browse button. So you can actually customize your own Mellotron, which is pretty awesome. Basic sample editing can be done via the edit page here, including things like looping, gain adjustment, transposition, and envelopes. And we can even move sample sets around to different parts of the keyboard to create splits and layers. And finally, we have this great effects section here, which is laid out like a guitarist pedal board. So a variety of effect stomp boxes to choose from. We can stack up to 4 together. Then we have amplifier emulation and reverb. So really cool, lots to play around with. Okay, lastly, I'm going to have a look at Analog Lab 4, which has of course been updated to include presets from all these lovely new instruments. However, it also includes more than 600 presets from Pigments, which is Arturia's original software instrument released late last year. If you want to have a closer look at Pigments, check out our video, where we cover the interface and a lot of the features in quite some depth. So Analog Lab 4 functions very similarly to Analog Lab 3 with the addition of this new concerts section here, which is a really tidy way of organizing all of your presets for a live performance. You can see they're all organized by songs here. If we click the Go on Stage button, we get a nice big stage-friendly visual overview of everything, including the instruments we have currently loaded up, all the hardware controller assignments, as well as effects and metering. Okay, thanks very much for watching. This has been a quick first look at Arturia's V-Collection 7. Please leave any questions or comments down in the section below. We'll get to them all if we can. See you next time.